Welcome back to the deep dive. Usually we start these by telling you exactly what we're going to talk about, give you the roadmap right up front. Today, I actually want to start by showing you. I want to play a game with you right now.
Which is a bit of a risky way to open a show, I guess, but if the research in our stack today holds up, it's statistically guaranteed to work.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So listener, wherever you are, unless you are currently operating heavy machinery or, driving through a complex intersection, I want you to play along in your head and ask you to do some quick math. Ready?
I am ready.
Okay. Pick a whole number between 2 and 9. Got it?
Yep, got it.
Multiply that number by 9.
Okay.
You should have a 2-digit number now. I want you to add those 2 digits together.
Done.
Now, subtract 5 from that total.
Okay.
Now, convert that number to a letter of the alphabet. So 1 is A, 2 is B, 3 is C, 4 is D, and so on.
I have my letter.
Think of a country in Europe that starts with that letter. The first one that pops into your head.
Okay, got it.
Now, take the second letter of that country's name and think of an animal that starts with that letter.
Got the animal.
Now, visualize that animal. Think of its color.
I'm visualizing it.
Are you thinking of a gray elephant from Denmark?
I mean, yes.
Yeah.
I absolutely am. And I know the math behind it, and it still worked on me.
It is unnerving, right? And that is the entire theme of today's deep dive. We're looking at the machinery of perception. We have a stack of research here, from biological journals, psychology papers, and even mentalist handbooks, that suggests our free will is often just biology, probability, and cultural programming, wearing a trench coat.
It is a fascinating, if slightly unsettling, mix. We're going to cover how sound waves can physically hack your nervous system, how to read the code of human body language, and finally, we're going to expose a massive flaw in how science has studied the human mind for the last century.
Right. A flaw that suggests we might be studying the wrong humans entirely. Let's start with the hardware, though, the biology. I was reading through this literature review on auditory beat stimulation, specifically binaural beats. Now, I've seen these on YouTube titles, like Studying Music for Focus, Theta Waves for Sleep, and I always just dismissed it as placebo or pseudoscience. But the physics here actually seem legitimate.
It is legitimate physics, but the biology is where the magic happens. The concept relies on a phenomenon called entrainment. If I play a 300 hertz tone in your left ear and a 310 hertz tone in your right ear, your brain basically has a problem.
Because it can't resolve those two conflicting frequencies.
Right, exactly. It can't resolve them. So to reconcile the dissonance, the brain creates a phantom third tone, the difference between the two. So 10 hertz. And here's the key insight. Your brain waves unwittingly start to match that 10 hertz frequency.
Wow.
It forces your brain into a specific state, a process known as the frequency following response.
So you're not just listening to a sound, you are forcing your brain's operating system to run at a specific clock speed.
That's a great way to put it. And the meta-analysis of 22 studies showed this isn't just cool theory, it had significant effects on reducing anxiety, specifically preoperative anxiety and dental anxiety.
Which makes sense. If you're sitting in a dentist chair, your brain is naturally stoking into high beta stress waves. If you can mechanically force it down to an alpha or theta state using these speeds, you're chemically altering your anxiety.
Precisely. But we do need to apply a filter here. It's not a magic trick. The research highlights that this works best on a healthy nervous system. If you have underlying neurological issues, the entrainment might not hold.
And interestingly, not all frequencies work, right?
Correct. Gamma frequencies, which are high energy, did nothing for anxiety, while the paper mentioned 432 hertz music has a potential alternative that does work.
Which segues perfectly into our next source from PLOS1. Because if sound can hack your anxiety, it turns out it can also hack your attraction.
Oh, this study was fascinating.
Yeah, this was the study looking at how music affects facial attractiveness. And I have to say, the methodology here was kind of hilarious.
It really was.
They showed heterosexual women photos of men while listening to 19th century piano music, and then again, silence.
And the difference wasn't subtle at all. When the music was playing, the women rated the men as significantly more sexually attractive and were more willing to date them.
So what is the mechanism there? Is it just that the music puts them in a good mood?
It's more specific than mood. It's a psychological glitch called misattribution of arousal. The music stimulates the reward circuitry in the brain, the limbic system, the same area that lights up for food or sex.
Okay.
The brain feels this arousal, looks at the picture of the guy and goes, oh, I must be excited by it.
It confuses the source of the data. It takes the internal feeling and projects it onto the external object.
Exactly. But here is the catch. It didn't work the other way around. Men didn't rate women higher when the music played.
Why the discrepancy? Because usually, these evolutionary psych studies claim men are more visually driven anyway.
The researchers speculate it's evolutionary. There's a theory that music originated partly as a courtship display, like a peacock tail, but sonic. Historically, males used it to attract females. So the female brain might be harder wired to evaluate that signal as a marker of genetic fitness.
That perfectly aligns with the other paper in our stack from Frontiers in Psychology. They made a really sharp distinction between music and visual art.
Yes, this is crucial for understanding how we process the world. The research suggests music is a visceral experience. It hits the reward system directly, it's fast. Visual art paintings, sculpture is processed as an aesthetic experience. It's cognitive.
So music is a gut punch, and a painting is a puzzle.
Correct. Visual art requires the cortex. You have to interpret it. Which brings us to the visual side of social engineering. If visual processing requires interpretation, that means it can be manipulated.
Let's talk about that manipulation. We have notes here from professional mentalists and body language experts, specifically Rich Ferguson and Mike Mandel. The biggest takeaway for me was that most of what we think we know about body language is a myth.
The crossed arms myth is the most pervasive one. You see someone with crossed arms, and you automatically think defensive or angry. Ferguson argues that's useless data. They might just be cold. They might just find it comfortable.
So what's the actual metric? Because we instinctively know when someone is closed off.
It is the delta, the change. You have to establish a baseline. If you're talking to someone and they are open and animated, and then you mention your pricing and suddenly they cross their arms or cover their mouth, that shift is the signal.
It's the reaction to the stimulus, not the posture itself. Ferguson also mentions a poker tell that I love, because I've definitely seen this at tables. The leaning forward tell.
Yes, when people get a strong hand, they don't just smile, they physically try to get closer to the pot.
It's subtle, right? They might just push their cards an inch toward the center.
It's a subconscious engagement, a way of saying, I want to be part of it.
On the flip side, Mike Mandel talks about how to manufacture that engagement using mirror neurons. He calls it the golden rule of rapport.
This is potent because it stops you from overthinking what to do with your hands. Mandel says, just pretend the other person is the most fascinating human being you have ever met.
It sounds like fake it till you make it, but it's actually hijacking your own biology.
It is. If you genuinely hold that internal state, this person is fascinating. Your micro-expressions, your pupil dilation, your posture will all automatically align to broadcast interest. Your mirror neurons fire, there's fire in response, and suddenly you have rapport without trying.
Because you can't fake the micromechanics, you have to fake the internal operating system. And he also talks about the eyebrow flash.
Yes, the eyebrow flash. A universal primate signal that basically says, we are of the same tribe. Just a quick raise of the eyebrows. And he notes the importance of proxemics. Don't force distance, just let the other person set the comfortable space.
And what if you need to break that rapport? Say you're trapped in a conversation at a networking event.
Just stand up.
It's so simple, it almost feels rude.
In a seated business context, standing up is the universal close tag on the interaction. It breaks the physical plane. You don't have to say you're leaving. Your body already left.
So we've covered biological hacks and social engineering.
Yeah.
But I want to circle back to the gray elephant trick we started with.
Let's break it down.
I picked Denmark and an elephant.
Yeah.
Because the math you gave me, multiply by 9, add the digits, subtract 5, that wasn't random, was it?
No, the math is entirely rigged. Any single-digit number multiplied by 9 results in a number where the digits add up to 9. 2 times 9 is 18. 1 plus 8 is 9. Minus 5 is 4. The answer is always 4.
So everyone listening got the letter D.
And this is where the probability part comes in. We live in a world where Denmark is the overwhelmingly dominant cognitive prototype for a country starting with D.
And B for elephant.
And elephants are gray. It works because your brain is lazy. When put under pressure, it reaches for the most accessible file in the cabinet. It relies on heuristics, mental shortcuts.
The mentalist notes from intelligence called this the number force. Like asking people to pick a number between 1 and 10.
And almost everyone picks 7.
Why 7? Is that cultural?
It's psychological. We are trying to be random and we are just really bad at it. 1 and 10 are the boundaries, 5 is the middle. Even numbers feel too clean or designed. 7 feels unique, jagged. But because we all think that way, 7 becomes the most predictable choice.
They use probability for other things too, like the scar reveal.
Oh, right. claiming you sense an injury from childhood. Most adults have a childhood injury scar, so it usually hits and feels incredibly psychic.
Or reading feet direction. People point their feet where they want to go, so if they're bored, they're probably pointing toward the door.
Exactly. Observation and probability.
This actually leads us to the most critical part of our deep dive. We've been talking about human psychology regarding these tricks, how we pick 7, how we perceive music. But there's a massive structural flaw in the we.
This is the weird problem, and it comes from a landmark paper by Medin, Ojaledo, Marin, and Bay. They argue that almost everything we know about psychology is based on a tiny statistical outlier of the human population.
We use the acronym WEIRD. Western, educated, industrialized, rich, and democratic.
Specifically, usually American undergraduates taking a Psych 101 class who need course credit. The paper points out that over 90% of psychology study participants come from this very specific demographic. And we just assume that their brains represent human nature as a whole.
But they don't.
They really don't. The paper calls this the closed loop. Non-diverse researchers use non-diverse samples for convenience and non-diverse methods like standard lab tasks to prove non-diverse theory.
Give us an example of where this breaks down. Where is the universal truth actually just a Western habit?
Take the sense of smell. In the West, scientists have long claimed that humans are terrible at describing smells. We don't have abstract words for them. We say, it smells like a banana. We use similes.
Right. Whereas for color, we say red. We don't say, it looks like a strawberry. We have an abstract category for the sensation.
Exactly. So the theory was that human brains can't abstract smell. But then they studied the Jahai people, who are hunter-gatherers on the Malay Peninsula. They do have abstract words for smell. They can name odors as quickly and distinctively as we name colors.
So the biological limitation was actually just a linguistic limitation.
A cultural one. Another huge one is decision-making and rationality. We have all these economic models about cognitive biases. For example, the relative savings bias.
This is the one where you drive 20 minutes to save $20 on a $40 blender. But you wouldn't drive 20 minutes to save $20 on a $15,000 car.
Right. Because $20 feels like a lot relative to the blender, but nothing relative to the car, even though it is the exact same $20 bill.
And economists call that irrational.
But the research shows that poor people don't do this. People living in conditions of scarcity treat $20 as $20, regardless of the context. They behave far more rationally according to the strict economic model. The bias, the so-called human nature, is actually a luxury of the rich.
That stops you in your tracks. We label the behavior of the wealthy as the standard, and the survival strategies of the poor as aberrant, when maybe it's the other way around.
That is the home field advantage the paper talks about. We define the game by our rules. Even something as basic as BMI body mass index is a Western standard. When applied globally, it misclassifies up to 500 million people as obese who are actually metabolically healthy just because their body composition varies biologically and culturally from the Western average.
The paper also touches on this idea of folk biology versus folk ecology, right?
Yes. Western kids are often raised to see humans as separate from nature, which is an anthropocentric view. Other cultures see humans as deeply embedded as part of the ecosystem.
So if our perception of smell, our economic rationality, our place in nature, and even our medical standards are culturally programmed, how do we get programmed? Because it feels innate.
This brings us to the final piece of our stack, scaffolding. We aren't born with these weird tendencies, we are built into them.
This comes from the music education research by Victoria Fuller.
Right. Think about how a child actually learns the language of music. They use the example of the song Bluebell's Cockleshells. You don't just hand a kid sheet music and expect them to understand. You start with a beat, then you move to rhythm and melody. Finally, you have them arrange new patterns in ensemble work. You build a scaffold.
You are literally wiring the brain to anticipate certain structures.
Exactly. And once that scaffold is built, you can measure it. We can objectively measure these perceptions using tools like the proms. Test the profile of music perception skills. It tests melody, tuning, and timbre discrimination.
But the nuance here is what it's really measuring.
Right. It shows that musical talent is actually a complex set of perceptual skills. What we call talent is often just how well you have absorbed the cultural code of Western music.
So if you took that same talented kid and dropped them into a culture with microtonal scales or polyrhythms that don't exist in Western music, they might actually test as tone deaf.
That is the implication.
This really creates a full circle moment for us today. We started with binaural beats hacking the brain, and ended with the realization that our culture has been hacking our brains since birth.
That is the big takeaway. We are programmable machines. Our biology can be entrained by sound, our social behavior can be manipulated by body language hacks and mentalism tricks, and our fundamental view of reality, from how we spend money to how we smell a flower, is software installed by our specific culture.
It is deeply humbling. The gray elephant wasn't just a magic trick, it was a demonstration of how easily we run on autopilot.
And the only way to switch to manual control is to be aware of the mechanism, to ask, am I thinking this because it is true or because I am a weird human who was taught to think this way?
I am going to be thinking about that closed loop for a long time. Here's a final thought for you to take with you, listener. We talked about how Western children see humans as separate from nature, while other cultures see us as part of the ecosystem. If something as basic as how we organize nature or perceive a smell varies by culture, it makes you wonder about the bigger things, like our internal monologue, or how we experience our own memories. Are those fundamental truths about the human mind, or just more cultural habits waiting to be debunked?
Definitely something to mull over.
Thanks for taking the deep dive.